Hey everyone, welcome back to Field Stories. As always, I'm Chris Catola, joined by Michaela Corey, and we are just the two of us again right now. Nick is just slowly digging out from underneath the mountain of schoolwork and other things, but I think he'll be joining us again soon, hopefully. Always missing you, Nick. And I guess we're a little different seasons for where I am versus where you are, Mick. For me here, it's just the beginning, sort of the edge of the rainy season now. We've had quite a bit of rain recently, but it's like right on that tipping point where it's going to rain every minute of every day versus, not rain at all, which is what it's like in the dry season here. So it's sort of this mid zone. And I guess for you up there, you're enjoying the cold weather, quote unquote, enjoying the cold weather. How is it up there where you are right now?
We got snow, which I'm really excited about. Honestly, I feel that my hopes for snow have dwindled over the years. So getting snow, especially in my first year or winter in New England, has been nice. So it's been really pretty. But yeah, it's quite cold. And like I told you, I've been keeping my house pretty low in temperature because I'm trying to save money for the holidays. So hence why I'm wrapped in a really warm blanket, because I was like, I'm going to be insane and keep it at 50. And it's 45 out today, so.
Yeah, like I said, I told you too. I understand that feeling. I've been there, done that. If I was back in the north, I'd do it again. So yeah, I understand it. Did the snow actually stick? I'm just curious, or did it melt away?
Yeah, I wish I could kind of show y'all. I don't want to just lift up my computer, but if it did a little bit, it's been melting. But there's still it's like maybe a half an inch covering on the ground. But I guarantee, because it's predicted to rain now, so it's going to probably either freeze or melt away, and then we're just going to have frozen grass and sidewalks, and then the driving will get even worse.
Kind of gross, that weather, yeah. So, I mean, full disclosure for our viewers and listeners, we're not quite sure what date this episode is going to air yet, but we're recording it on December 8th. I just wonder, Michaela, just a question for you, speaking of the weather. I know you've been out in the field up until recently because it's been so warm, but are you done now? Do you have more to do? I mean, in general, what's the status of your surveys?
I actually have quite a bit of field work coming up in the next couple of weeks, which is pretty crazy. I know a lot of people are quite surprised, but I'm trying to get some last minute brumation spots of some of my animals. I'm actually doing a couple of site visits, and I will be continuing to do that throughout the winter. It's nice because it's a little bit more slow paced. There's not as many people out, so it's easier to get to these sites. And even though the vegetation's all dead, I can still have a general idea of if this site is viable or not, and if we want to target in the spring. So it kind of helps me prepare for a full field season in the summer and spring. But yeah, I actually have quite a full schedule the next couple of weeks before I go back home, surprisingly. So it just seems to never stop, but it just slows down a little bit. I'm leaving on the 20th, and I come back on the 5th, but I'll probably just work from home a little bit, but I have a little bit more of a flexible schedule, which is kind of nice. And then I did get a extension, so I will be here till October, so I get to kind of wrap up on some publications and field studies, which I'm really excited about, to be honest, because it will be nice to, wrap everything up instead of just kind of abandoning it and going to the next job, so
of course.
So it's been pretty good, but I get a good chunk of time home, and then I'm hoping to secure a spot to come to Peru and actually meet it.
I'll believe it when I see it. No, I hope you can.
Yeah, you too.
Oh, that's awesome. Cool. Well, that's good to hear. I guess let us jump right into it. Our guest this week is Anthony Porter, Outdoor Anthony on social media. Anthony's someone that I met doing a podcast actually during the pandemic, and really cool guy. I've enjoyed following his Instagram and his rise through social media. He's really amassed a big following now. He's actually just published a book as well. It's really nice to see people who come to this field, but you can tell a genuine passion for nature and just loving the outdoors, and from an ethical and really heartfelt perspective. So, he reached out to us actually a while ago, reached out to me on Instagram asking if we'd want to have him on the show. And I was like, yeah, that sounds awesome. So, so we finally got our schedules to meet up. And Anthony's our guest, and I guess we might as well get right to it.
Awesome.
All right, so our guest this week is Anthony Porter, and thanks a lot for joining us, Anthony. It's actually kind of funny because you and me first met when I was on a podcast that you host quite a few years ago. And I think it was during the pandemic when everybody was doing podcasts, because what could you do but live in your basement or whatever and do things, right? But that was a really fun conversation we had all those years ago, and I think we followed each other since in social media as we do in this world today. And I think actually you contacted us thinking you'd like to be on the show and share some stories with us. And that's like a great idea. You're a perfect guest for us. So yeah, thanks a lot for joining us. And if you want to give our listeners and viewers a bit of background about yourself, that would be awesome. And then we can get started.
Cool. Yeah. Thank you too for having me on. I appreciate it. Yeah, Chris, I guess we've kind of pseudo digitally known each other for a few years. And back then, neither of us really had any kind of notoriety. And now it's kind of the opposite, which is really rad. I'm Anthony Porter. Outdoor Anthony is my little username, but I've been doing outdoor education at jobs for forever. And so my gig is specifically to teach people how to get outside. That first level of engagement when people are just like deciding whether or not to go on a hike. Like I'm the one that kind of tries to push them over to the edge of being like, yeah, I want to go on a hike. So I'm very like intro level education. And then I do like to get a little bit more deep into like biogeography is a huge passion of mine. And yeah, so I live up here in Lake Tahoe, and my entire goal in life is to just make sure I have everybody that I can possibly like reach comfortable in the outdoors. And I'm trying to do that right now through social media platforms, and then hopefully through other avenues as well later down the line. But I'm all for any kind of conservation, and I'm about to geek out real hard with you guys, so I'm pretty stoked.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks, Anthony, for that. I guess we have a lot of questions, and I guess I would say for starters, outdoor education for me is something that's really near and dear to my heart, because prior to my life taking a bit of a different turn, my background was doing environmental education in schools and public events. So I can attest to how important it is firsthand as well. So I really appreciate that. I guess my first question to you then would be like, sort of what was your route to that? I mean, is this something that came to you like from a very young age? Is it something that kind of had an awakening at some point when you were a teenager or a young adult? Like kind of what was your route to get to where you are now? I guess that would be that first question.
Man, good question. It's hard. I mean, I think a mixture of my parents just encouraging me to like, be in the Boy Scouts and go outside and stuff. But honestly, my other brothers went to the Boy Scouts into the same exact track as I did. And, it was just that it's so hard to say like the insane twists of fate that we all have. But I really just identified with wandering and adventure, and you can't get that without nature. And so for me, that's what nature is. It's that blank platform where we can use to really find out about ourselves through adventure and let's exploration. And I always would tell my mom, like, all right, I'm going on a walk. And I was like 12. And she's like, oh, around the block? I was like, uh-huh. And then I would go like way too far. And and then on my 16th birthday, I remember being like, I don't want to go to school. I worked ahead of time and got all of my work done for that day. And I wrote a note to my mom. I snuck out the window and I told my mom, like, I'm going to be in the woods today. And I left her a little note, and she called me furious. She's like, you better come back right now. And I remember I brought like a guitar, a samurai sword, and like a Nature Valley bar. And that's what I just wanted to do all day.
I mean, what else do you need in nature, really? I mean, honestly.
Yeah. Anyways,
like most of the nature guys I know right there.
You basically sound like a character from The Walking Dead or something. Like, honestly.
Well, behind me, actually, on my fireplace is a giant katana. Because
wow, that's amazing.
But yeah, I don't know. I identify with adventure, and I think adventure sometimes gets into like the fantastical realm, bows and arrows and swords, and so yeah, my moniker is usually me running around with my my arrows on my back. Sorry, Michaela, I interrupted you.
You're fine. So I feel like we can all relate a little bit to that, in some way or another, of how we started our journey, and it all just stems from somehow we ended up outdoors and we couldn't get away. It's like almost like an addiction, right? But I guess my question is how have you acquired the skills to start your journey and teach other people? Do you have certifications, or did you just do it by being outdoors all the time?
Yeah, fantastic question. Mixture of both. So I think as we all start just in like life, we have those little nuggets of information that like your parents tell you, or like your family friend tells you, and then if it's fascinating enough, like for me, it was fascinating enough to where I would explore a bit more. It really, I mean, I think it's counter, like from my side of things, because I got into nature because I wanted to just like strictly like I need to adventure. Like I need to go out and like I want to be like a superhero out in the world. And like I wanted to have that feeling of adventure. And then I found like a bow and arrow in my neighbor's garage, and I took it. And then they're like, "We know you stole it. Like you can have it." And I'm like, and
Great.
but that like opened my mind up to being like running around the backyard just acting like I'm fighting demons and all this stuff. But then you realize in the world, like, yeah, you can't do that. That's not real. So what is real? And then you're like, all right, this adventure, like there's explorers, there's people out there that like can uncover like secrets of our planet and are still doing it. And I mean, it still is a frontier. And I mean, you both can attest to that, I'm sure. And yeah, I think I decided that I didn't want to go to college. And my dad's like, "We saved up for you. You're going to college." And I'm like, "Okay, fine. I want to go for outdoor education and leadership." And so I went to Northern Arizona University for that like very specific niche thing. And then I didn't expect to do this, but like, yeah, I got all those certifications. I got like wilderness first responder, backpacking. It was like some kind of backpacking certification through my college. Toastmasters graduate from, I was doing like a lot of like, I did like a few auditions and plays when I was younger. So I did like the public speaking side since I was very young. And it was just like this snowball effect of, I mean, once you have like a wilderness first responder, a backpacking guide, you're like, all right, what kind of jobs can I get? I wonder. So then I started to work in outdoor education fields, specifically at like environmental institutes. And then that kind of went into like taking on a leadership position at those places, and then really being interested in like the nature part of things. Like that always gravitated really heavily towards me. So I would always teach like archery and ecology. And then that went into like, man, I wonder what like SeaWorld is up to. Like I hear like mixed things. I'm going to work there for a little bit. And I worked there and figured out what I figured out there. And then I moved to the next job. And yeah, so now I'm the communications director for the Tahoe Rim Trail Association. So we do all the trail conservation work, kind of making sure that areas are naturalized if we've kind of destroyed them, and then making sure we have optimum amount of place for people to adventure without messing up the forest. And I think just the next steps in life are to do that on my own and take it to a grander platform and scale. So
cool. Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you for that. It sounds like a nice classic winding journey that so many of us in this field go down. So
Yeah.
I guess, I have a couple questions, but I'll go with my first one, and then I'll let you go ahead, Michaela, if you have one. So yeah, you said you work a lot with the public, and maybe more like that sort of introductory / intermediate level of public awareness, I guess, about nature and environment conservation. And yeah, I'm always curious, from your perspective, I guess what your perspective is on the public's awareness of nature and conservation, and also, if you've been doing it a long time, how you may have seen that evolve over time as well. So kind of what you see today, but also how that might have changed over the last, 5, 10, whatever years you've been doing it.
Yeah. Oh man, I could totally talk on like, it's so much of it is like what the public is given, right? So right now, if you look at any nature TV show, like at all, if you just look up like nature TV show, it's going to be a survival show. It has to do with like ratings. It has to do with like insane. Like even I've done American Ninja Warrior for a long time. And now instead of people being like, "Hi, this is Anthony. Look at him go through the course." It's like, we're going to race Anthony against another Ninja Warrior and see who doesn't die. Like, so everything's getting more extreme. And so people are starting to identify nature with just this extreme place to go to for like insane scenarios. And to kind of need like a ground level Bill Nye-ish kind of person to kind of be like, nah, like, go to the park if you want. Like, you don't need to survive with nothing but a butter knife for 5 days. Like, nature isn't that. You can just survive. I mean, Chris, you've lived in the rainforest for years, and it's a different story than like bushcraft. So I think what people have been fed in the last few years, although it is nature technically, it's just I don't want people to see that as an extremism place. I want it to see as like, this is a natural place where you should feel comfortable in. So I think that's what like the biggest change that I've seen. And I think just in terms of how it used to be viewed when I first started, oh man, yeah, I think it's that. I think the Animal Planet, just like, I think that's a really indicative thing. Like, look at Animal Planet. Like, it used to be like the Crab
Attenborough
Brothers
type
talking
documentaries,
about,
right?
yeah, it used to be people like you, Chris, and now it's like, how many axes can you fit in your backpack before you die? Or like, it's, yeah, whatever. But
has gone downhill, I feel like, since the early 2000s. And that's what like I used to watch all the time. And I feel, you know, from the OGs of Shark Week versus now, it's like, can Michael Phelps swim faster than a shark? And it's like, what about the ecology?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So there's a bit of that. It's a big challenge. I'm not going to lie. Because everything is about ratings right now. And that's the number one way that people are going to see nature if they're not used to it.
Yeah, that's, I guess I'm just going to butt in and follow up on that, Michaela. Sorry, because actually he just led into what my other question was. So I was going to naturally follow up on this. Yeah, I'm just curious from your perspective with the work, you know, you do in your videos and your content, because, you know, in a way, there's some similarities between what I do and what you do in the fact that we're trying to show cool things. But also, like, I mean, from my perspective, and I think yours as well, we also don't want to do it irresponsibly, and we don't want to, you know, lead people down that path of extremism, extreme behavior being the only way to do things or to view things. But also, you're right about ratings, views, however you want to, you know, categorize it and count it. You need that. It's reality. If the other way you get more viewers and more exposure and more ability to get your word out there, not just for your own account, but also just for what you're trying to do, which is to actually raise awareness. It's such a balancing act. And I'm curious for you, how you do that and what your thoughts are on that process. Because for me, I can tell you, it's hard, man. It's freaking hard. And I when I had like 4,000 followers, nobody gave a damn what I did. And now I've got a lot more, and it's like, holy, it's hard. So I'm curious your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, you are such a fantastic example of that, because you have put out like the same, to me at least, you put out the same kind of stuff. And then, you have like something that talks about like erections, or you talk about like the world ending fungus. And those are like, that's the thing that people latch onto. And, you know,
for better or for worse, it's true.
So in marketing, there's 3 circles. There's like the engagement, then there's the consideration, and then there's a conversion. So the engagement is just get people in the circle. They're circling the drain. They're thinking about you. And then the consideration is like, well, this person actually might have some value. And then that final conversion piece is like, they're in it. They're part of your community. And so it is a balance of like, how can I get like the broad engagement, which is kind of sometimes the extreme stuff. Like, how do you survive? And then go a little bit closer to like, all right, now there's actually like, I need to teach you values. Like, there are values that you need to know. Man, it's tough. I would say I try to cycle. Like, sometimes engagement is really important. Like, if all of my videos are like really educational and no one gives a crap, I figure it's time to probably do a video like, here's how to survive the zombie apocalypse with a sword. Like,
I understand.
Oh, man, it's tough. It's tough. You know that. You know that. It's tough.
Yeah. Do you, are there certain, sorry, Michaela, I swear I'll let you have a question. I apologize. But I'm just really curious about your perspective. Maybe this is bordering on to like 2 friends talking more than anything, but here we go. I'm curious, do you have certain topics, certain things that you feel particularly sensitive about talking about, or things you just won't go to because you feel like it could set a bad example? Like, you kind of know it will get views, but you're like, but I'm not going there. That's my ethical threshold. Because I know I have that. I've just lots of things I could do around here that would get views, but it's insane and it's not safe for me or wildlife, and I'm never going to do it. But you know, there's people out there. We all know certain accounts, especially with herps, that are like that do things that are incredibly unethical and, in my opinion, just horrific. But they get a lot of views. So you know, that line is that. So I'm curious for you, you know, if you're willing to discuss it, what your triggers, what your lines would be.
Yeah. I've got a couple lines. One line is surviving off of trees. Like the cambium layers of a lot of trees have fantastic amount of nutrition. But the minute you say that and show people how to do that, you see like strips of bark gone from, like, you can kill the tree if you don't do it right. Like, and even like a kid with a pocket knife could kill a tree if you start to like mess with its nutrient levels. So that's something that I really would love to talk about. Like, oh yeah, like something that none of these survival people have really touched is like the intercambium layer of trees and how you can survive off that. That's a super specific example. But I'll never do a video about that just because I can't. Yeah, I can't do that. And then interacting with animals is tough. The only wild animal interactions that I've had on my channel have been when a bear straight up just walked up to me in the middle of my like video about dandelions and like just ate my dandelions and then like didn't give a shit and just walked away. And it was like a 400-pound bear. It was huge.
Nice.
And so I took a video from like super far away.
I would too.
Yeah. And then when it comes to herp stuff, I would say I don't do videos unless it's about the specific like rubber boas, which are just like the dumbest little noodles. They're just like I love them. They're great. They're fantastic.
Yeah.
And they're actually used as educational tools in a lot of institutes. So, man, I would say we probably both know people that grab animals, to use another word, and just kind of make.
Grab this. If any adjectives, I'd be happy to just put some in there.
Yeah. Yeah, we definitely do know that some people like that. Yeah.
And then you got it.
Keep going.
I don't know. There's so many lines, man. I don't know.
It's tough though, right? It's tough.
It is tough. I mean, there are things that once I see it, I'm like, oh, like that behavior is really cool. Or, and also like I love to do something that all scientists absolutely hate and like personify attributes to get you to relate to nature more. So I'm like, oh, well, I don't know, I can't think of an example right now, but like animals that do this during mating season, like how we do that. I'm like, oh boy, boys and girls, like, oh boy. Like you got to do that with a grain of salt for sure.
Yeah.
But those also get the views sometimes, so it's hard.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it depends on how you phrase it, but that can also make it more relatable, right? So I think it's a balancing act, but it can be good. Yeah.
I think that communication is really important, and I think a lot of science, especially as a scientist myself too. I mean, I have found that a lot of scientists really lack in communication, especially to the general public, to stakeholders, to agriculturalists, and like you said, there are scientists that don't like it when you personify or anthropomorphize animals, but at the same time, that's just how some people learn. And I think that's really important to bridge a gap of communication in order to have the public learn about, important topics. Otherwise, we're going to still have people chopping off heads off of snakes and, ripping bark off of trees. I guess, what have you learned? Like, what's the biggest thing you've learned as a quote unquote educational influencer? Like, what have you learned from the public, and how do you respond to really negative comments? One thing I am kind of glad I don't have a huge platform myself is because I don't even know how I'd handle that, because I have a bit of a hot temper. As Chris knows, I tend to comment some pretty absurd things where I just kind of go off and then I have to delete it immediately because I forget I work for the state. I'm like, okay.
Or you just send me a 10-minute voice note, which I love.
Yeah, I do. I know. Like, what on earth? And anyway, yeah.
Man. Yeah, there's a lot of contention for sure with certain videos, and just like ways to teach. Like I'll give that snake example. So I did a snake video about 2 months ago where I found a rubber boa and I was playing with them, and I put it on my face and like I was playing around with it, but I also acted like a snake and like laid in the trail and had people like run over me and be like, this hurts, like please be considerate when you're on the trail. And then people in the comments are like, leave the snake alone, you're like, you evil man. And they're
animal abuse.
Yeah. And I'm just like, so I make like really long thought out messages. I think I have 3 modes. Either like I just like it and be like, followers, go to town on that dude. Or 2 is like I'll do something super super lateral where they're like, well, this isn't super cool and it has a family at home, and then I'll just put like, your mom has a family at home, and just something like they want to interact. They don't want they want to be right.
They just want attention.
They want the attention. So I'm gonna give it to them, but I'm gonna be dumb about it. And And then if it's something that super has like a really big conservation like implication, I'll write paragraphs and like I'll never do it private messaging on. I will always do it in public. And I think like even we have the Tahoe Rim Trail Association where I take care of their social media for an organization, and they have thousands of followers too. And when you're working for a company and doing that, and like some people are like, hey, I looked up your boss's salary and it's like directly like equivalent to how much funds you've raised in the last 5 years. Like, what do? Do you delete those comments where it's like you're just getting money just to pay yourselves, or do you talk about it? And I've always been on the side of like, do not delete comments. You talk it out. You talk it out. Even if you lose, you're showing people that like, I don't know, the conversation is important. That's all I'll say. Conversation is super, super important.
I tend to agree with that. Yeah.
No, for sure. I was on, we actually had someone on the podcast, and he had posted something, and I remember I had commented a joke more recently, and it was just like, it was actually about white pines, and I consider white pines as like, they pop up like weeds. And I had put that, and then this girl absolutely just reamed me. She's like, you should know more about white pines, especially as a biologist. How dare you say that? I was just like, what? So anyways, I had like written out like a well thought out response going, hey, you're really reaching for this. And I do know, and I'm sorry that, and I felt that it worked because she deleted it. And I, instead of I've been trying to learn to not like completely just utilize my Italian hot temper and go, well, you're an idiot. Sorry. But I agree. I think that hopefully we articulate the way we respond. It helps people either simmer down their internal anger that they like to project on the internet, or hopefully they'll learn something. But I think I do have a follow-up question too, and it's for people who want to be in a position like you. You're really popular on Instagram, on YouTube, and you're doing really well. You're having fun with it. If someone in a field similar to yours wants to get there, what advice would you give them?
Yeah, for sure. Hit me up on Instagram and ask me, because it's fraught with peril. I would say, I didn't really become successful at any of this, and I am super happy to say like I am successful at it now. Like I am quitting my day job and doing like video creation and try to do this full time and get a bigger platform. So I feel like I can say that I am successful at it. I wasn't like that until I embraced every single part of me. And I'll kind of break that down. So like, I have parts of me that like, I love weapons and I love arrows and I like shooting them and I want to be like the superhero. And I'm like, how does that fit into this? And then there's like the insane goofy performer of me that makes silly videos that I just want to be in like sketch comedy groups. But like the big heart of me wants to be in nature. And I had these separated. Like I would write them in my journal. Like I called like the nature part of me the intellectual animal, and then I called the nature side of me, like I forget. I had all these names for it, but like I'm like, how am I working on different parts of myself today? And that was like my development. And then I was sitting miserable in Washington under a tarp because I forgot a tent in the middle of nowhere. And it was raining sideways and I couldn't even move because my tarp was so small. And I was just sitting under this torrential like downpour alone in the woods. And I was like, maybe I'm gonna recreate how I think about myself. And it was like, I need to combine all of these. And if I'm not celebrated for it, well then screw it. It's fine. But it's worth diving in with every part of you. So finding all those niches that you have and then blend them together. I mean, we don't have a lot of time in the world, and then we also like we shouldn't strive to be normal. And I think the people that strive to copy or strive to be normal, there's like too many of them. There's boring. So like do more. Is that good?
Yeah. No, that's good. That makes sense. Actually really cool. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, no, that's really good advice. That's really cool. And I think that's whether your goal is to be, doing what you're doing, or whether it's just to be kind of different, something else, just being yourself is being more authentic. I mean, it's one of those therapy buzzwords, but damn it, it's true. Just be authentic, be who you are. Yeah. It's true. Yeah, and that's awesome advice, man.
Sorry, I'll add to that of like, you'll see influencers' lives on Instagram and TikTok, and it's never that. It's never that. Like, I live in a very tiny house. This jacket was $20. Like, I'm not like living some high life. Like, I
I know.
it's always a struggle. The struggle just
Yeah.
changes to something else. So like making sure that you recognize, like, don't go into it for like success and fame. Like, do it because you have something to give.
Yeah.
I like that. That's a
Yeah.
good
Yeah, that's true.
response.
That's true. Well, that's awesome, man. I really appreciate it. It's really interesting, and yeah, I think this is really cool. Actually, I really enjoyed it, and with Michaela, we should do more topics about influencers and this whole world and how it relates to wildlife and nature and ethics of it. I think it's a really cool topic, but an important topic this day. So that's an internal show discussion we could have later. But anyways,
Yeah.
yeah, I think we should probably move on now to your story, even though I think we could keep talking for the whole afternoon, just for the sake of the time of the show. We should probably move on to, your story, man. And I'm curious to see what it's going to be, because you draw upon a whole bunch of different potential places. You know, it could be education, it could be camp, it could be something out of American Ninja Warrior. Who knows? I'm curious. We want to know what it's going to be. So, yeah, drop it on us, man.
I thought about it for a while. I think, I mean, I've been to about 26, 27 countries now. I just got back from Bali and Borneo, in Indonesia, like a month ago. And that was the first time I ever got to see like orangutans in the wild. And like, I thought like, man, like once I get out to Borneo, like things are going to make sense. Like that's my white whales, like going out there and being part of that conservation world. And I mean, yeah, everywhere has like, is kind of fraught with their own issues. And I think something that is like really indicative of me is like adventuring for the sake of adventure. You don't have to go across the planet to do it. And so my story takes us to Hoagie's Campground in Los Angeles, like San Bernardino Forest. And I love to go backpacking in this one spot. I went there for my birthday when I was 18. I took some friends backpacking back here. It's this area. They have these really incredible salamanders that live in these streams. And then there's like these sequentially rising up dams that go up into the mountains. And the dams were just there from the conservation course, so there's not like landslides. So they don't like hold back any water. It's really interesting. And I was alone. I decided to just go backpacking by myself. And this area said like, warning, animals, animals, animals. I'm like, yeah, whatever. But me being me, I had my bow on my back, a sword, and then all of my backpacking gear. And I was reading the Shannara Chronicles, I think, at the time. And I was sitting at the fire. This was maybe back in 2017, 2018. And I made a little fire, and I just sat down. And I remember Chris and I's mutual friend Seabird was telling us about the different eye reflection. You can tell in the middle of the night based off of the eye reflections what kind of animal it is, or what kind of what kind of animal it is. So I was reading by the fire, and this area is well known for like bears, but like black bears, so they're not going to harm you. They're just like curious. So I was sitting by the fire, and I heard ruffling, like rustle, 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 rustle. And I looked to my right, and it was basically like minimal light, almost like completely dark, like 7 o'clock in the summertime. And I saw like a squirrel like skittering through everything. And I was like, man, relax, Anthony. You're not like some crazy like survivalist. You're just out here in the woods, and you like bow and arrows. So you just have a bow and arrow. Things are fine. And then I hear rustling again, and I'm just keep reading my book. I'm not really worried about it. And then the rustling gets closer, and to my right is are 2 trees, and that's where I strung up my hammock between these 2 big like nice pine trees. And then I looked over because like my hammock was making noise. I'm like, it's not windy. And I look, and sitting underneath the hammock are these very reflective eyes that are like they're not like that far apart. They're like 6 inches apart. They're pretty big. And I was like, oh man, a bear's underneath my hammock. This is sick. Like, he's just looking at me. He just wants to see if I have food. And so I was like, I should scare him off. So I stood up and I started walking over. I'm like, hey, hey, hey. And my flashlight gets closer, and it's a mountain lion. And this mountain lion's maybe like 15 feet from me. At 10 feet at the time because I got super close to it. But it was like just sitting there. Like it wasn't like any kind of predatory. It wasn't like on its haunches, like staring at me. It was laying down like a cat under a sunbeam would be, like very relaxed. And I was kind of proud of myself being like, my first instinct wasn't to like grab my weapons and go, yeah. Like it was just to like, I was big, loud, and was very like like upfront with it, but it didn't care. It just sat there, and it like didn't even move. It like looked around like super lazily, and I went back to reading, and I just sat next to the fire again, and I just started reading my book. And so me and this mountain lion just hung out for like half an hour, and then I was like, you know what, this was nice, but there's no way I'm gonna push this and like sleep here tonight. So at this point, the mountain lion kind of did circles and then pushed back a little bit further to the next campsite. It was just kind of sitting at the next campsite over. So I undid my hammock, strapped everything back on again. And yes, I did have an arrow knocked, but I was not thinking about anything aggressive. And I just walked backwards from that campsite. And I remember that the gate to the campsite, like they basically locked the cars into the lot for the night where I was camping. So I wasn't able to leave unless I got there at, I think, before 8 o'clock, and it was like 7:45. And I had to like run, I think it was like 2 miles with all my gear back to my car in time. But I had to walk backwards for a little bit to make sure that the guy wasn't following me. And I zigzagged all the way back down, walking backwards, singing at the top of my lungs. I think it was Greta Van Fleet. I think I was singing. Pretty rad. They're from Michigan, by the way, Meek. Yeah.
Yeah, they're a good band. I like them a lot.
Yeah. And then I got to the lot as the ranger was closing the gate. And actually, I was back a little bit more. But as I was looking down at the wash right before I was leaving my campsite, I saw him like on like a Simba rock, like looking out over the wash, staring at me. And it was like, I know it was like he could totally murder me, but it was so beautiful to just see those like reflective eyes like over this like cascading rock. And
Wow.
Yeah, that was something super special. But I tell that story a lot to kids, not to like freak them out, but to be like, we can be part of nature. Obviously, we have to be super careful, super careful. But nature isn't some big bad that's out to murder us every second that we get. It's this place that you can feel comfortable in. And yeah, that's an extreme example that you should not get into. But it's a place that you guys should all feel comfortable in. If you want help, let me know. Happy to make that happen for you. So that's my story.
That's awesome. I love that. That's a great message, and that's a message that I think a lot of wildlife educators who are coming from it from an ethical point of view try to get out there. I know I do. I'm sure you would as well, Michaela. I think we all try to get that out, especially if you're working with animals that are dangerous or misunderstood, like venomous snakes in my case, and in your case, Anthony, a cat, which people often vilify. Yeah, so that's wolves. These types of large animals are often vilified as being bloodthirsty monsters that just want to kill you at every step. So, that's a great story. I really appreciate it. Thank you for sharing it.
Thanks. Yeah, it's fun. I told my mom as soon as I got back to my house. I was living with my parents at the time. She's like, "Why would you tell me that?" Like, yeah, that's fair. I got to know my audience.
Yeah, I have to ask one quick question. Because obviously you talk about being able to go around these parks a lot with like a bow and arrow and a sword. Okay, so how does that? I know it's America, and I know y'all love your weapons there, but nonetheless, like, how is this okay? Like, do you get in trouble? Is there regulations? Like, what's the deal with that?
Yeah, so the regulation is a firearm. There's a lot of, insane amount of restrictions with firearms. Like, don't get me wrong, but a firearm, in legal sense, I was just looking this up, so it's perfect. Is anything that has an explosive charge that sends a projectile somewhere, and so that a bow and arrow doesn't fall into that. However, there are laws for bow and arrows, and I really don't use like a whole lot of like trails. I find places that it's okay to kind of like get off the beaten path and just kind of make your own way. And I always make sure that like I don't have like an arrow. I'm not like running around like hiding in bushes like next to trails. So you have to be 100 yards away from a trail, 100 yards away from a trail or any man-made structure in order to shoot an arrow. And you have to be carrying some kind of target with you. So otherwise you can be arrested for being a poacher, which totally makes sense. So I do that. I have like small targets with me that I keep. And yeah, I do occasionally like run into people and they're like, "Oh, what are you hunting?" And I'm like, "Stumps. I'm shooting stumps. I'm out here." I usually tell them that I'm making an educational video and this is my thing. And then if they see you as like some like inconsequential influencer, they're like, "Oh, you're just an idiot." Okay, cool. That's fine. But yeah, like anytime I see anybody if I'm like happening to be on a trail where the bow and arrow is, like I'm super jolly. I'm like super welcoming. If they ask, I'm like, hey, yeah, do you want to shoot one? Like I'm super like I'm carrying like a muffin and they want to bite. Like it's I want to make it as like accessible to people as possible. And I don't think anybody's ever been like turned off by me. I mean, I've met people in the gun, like in the middle of the woods that are carrying pistols and stuff. And
well, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, do you? But this is, yeah, it's kind of my totem. It's my way of adventuring, getting out there. And yeah, I'm just, I will say I'm very strategic and smart about it.
Makes sense.
Yeah. I take the sword out as less. When people see that you have a sword, they're like, all right,
I was going to say,
I take the sword out less, yeah.
Yeah, if I was working alone in the field and I came across a man with a katana and a bow, I'd probably freak out a little bit. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah. Oh, valid.
Yeah, it's a little, yeah, the sword's kind of a Friday night kind of thing, you know, just like generally.
It's a Friday night. Chris, I want to hang out with you on Friday night.
It's just like, you know, I do it last, just certain nights. Yeah. Oh man, wow, that was great, man. I really appreciate it. That was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I guess we'll wrap it up here. Hopefully we can have you on again sometime in the future and discuss more things related to everything, essentially. And
yeah, totally.
Yeah, you want to just give a quick little plug again for your Instagram, YouTube, and any other platforms you want to share? That'd be great.
Yeah, guys, I got a book. It's called My Epic Nature Journal, and it's to get kids outside adventuring around. It's a super big, like, what are the 5 senses, very like from ages 3 to 10ish, to get people outside and adventuring with their family. So that book is on Amazon. It's in Target. It's in Barnes and Noble. Wherever you want to get your books. My Epic Nature Journal, and then you could find me at Outdoor Anthony on everything. Outdoor Anthony, except Twitter, X. I don't think I have one of those.
Yeah, that's okay. People should just start to walk away from that anyway, so it's fine.
Dude, I don't even think Threads is that great. Like, I don't like those platforms at all. They're just
no, that's fair enough. So cool.
Awesome.
Well, I already follow you, so definitely hopefully everybody else will keep following you. And yeah, really appreciate your time, man. Thank you so much.
I really appreciate it too, you guys. Thank you so much for having me tell stories and yap your ear off.
For sure. Thanks.
Awesome. All right, man. We'll talk to you again in the future, hopefully. Ciao.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
All right. Well, that was great. I really enjoyed having him on. Yeah, I mean, as someone now, like it's true what he said, like back when we first met digitally, yeah, I think we each had like combined like 5,000 or 6,000 followers on Instagram, right? So it was like a different world back then. And I certainly didn't think I'd have any followers this time. And I guess he's worked toward this, you know, so different routes to where we are. But yeah, it's an interesting to talk to someone else who's kind of in this similar world of what I do sometimes, of trying to do these videos, or trying to understand how to do them, how best to do them, how to do them ethically. We talked to some other guests about this kind of topic, and how to promote what you do, promote engagement with what you do, and the passion that you have for it, but also like not trying to show things that aren't ethical. And that line is really, it's tough. And yeah, I really enjoyed talking to him about that. That was really interesting.
Yeah, I definitely learned a lot from him. And I, especially, you know, being friends with you for a while and seeing your platform and understanding how, I don't want to say sensitive people could be, but I feel that just there's some people out there that just want to start an argument. And it's about how, I feel like no matter what you post, there's going to be someone, you know, who's going to have something negative to say. But I think the whole point of it is just trying to get the education out there and to outreach to as many people. And even with those people who are seeing the negative things, I think they still are learning, or at least remembering or absorbing, you know. And I think he articulated it very well. With how he handles a lot of the situations, but also, you know, how he got there. And it's really fantastic that now he's able to quit his day job to do this full time. And I think that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I agree completely with what you're saying about and what he said about the way to respond to people. It's kind of this stack. What he said is essentially exactly what I do. And I've always felt like, you know, when it comes to these social media platforms and any platform, whatever it is, when you are discussing things in a somewhat public manner, you know, it's not really just the person that you're talking to. It's also the people around you who are hearing it and forming opinions from that. And I think that, you know, if that person really does just want to argue, there's nothing you can do. You know, all you can do is explain your situation. And I feel like for me, like when I make content, I'm sure, I don't want to speak for him, but I suspect he feels the same, is that when I make content, I feel like if I can justify to myself and justify it to my peers, like you, for example, Michaela, and people who I respect, and explain what I did, why I did it, and most of those peers can be like, yeah, I agree, that's fine. Then the rest of it, I'm okay with. I'm ready to take that on, and that's kind of my filter for content is, if I have peers like you or like Holly, who we've had on before about birds, and different people like that. If those people respect what I do and how I do it, then I think I'm doing it right. And then if the other person who doesn't like it, then I'll explain the logic and then go from there. And then I suspect with Anthony, it's sort of similar in that he has this internal threshold of ethics and sticks to it, and then looks in the mirror and says, I'm doing what I think is right. And I guess for all of us, that's probably all we can do. But hopefully some of us have better ethics than others. Let's just leave it at that.
I would love to say, I really like that you both are very ethical with, your posts and what you do in terms of education and outreach. And it's really interesting because I feel that the ones that are ethical and they go through the proper permits get the most hate, whereas the ones that are not get the most love. And it's, kind of tying back to what he was talking about is the extremes, right? Like having people in the midst wrangling specific animals that are a little bit more dangerous and doing it improperly, maybe without permits, or just almost harming the animals, for some reason gets a lot of love, which is pretty mind-blowing to me. But, I'm not in that kind of realm. But hopefully, as you guys continue to grow, you will get the word out there that, hey, this is the proper way to do it. This is how we're educating people. You shouldn't be handling. This is why we're doing it with permit. And this is why we want you to learn rather than just going and grabbing animals for views,
Yeah, no, for sure. And I also think it was really good the way he spoke about his sort of route to where he is and his, I guess his story about an awakening of, just embracing who he is. And I think that's inspirational to anyone. Doesn't matter what your field is. And just as a person, being able to embrace your weirdness, embrace who you are, your unique self is, I think that was really cool. I really appreciated that. That was really, really awesome. So
I love that. I've been trying to do that because on a different platform, I feel like I have a little more followers for being tall, which is kind of goofy, but I love doing goofy videos. I'm trying to get into a little bit more cosplay, and I used to be and this is not scientific, mind you, but I used to be really embarrassed about it, but I realized that is a part of me that I really enjoy, and I really enjoy doing that kind of content for myself more than anything else. And I really like that he did emphasize on, enjoy and embrace your quote unquote weirdness. I mean, we're not high schoolers anymore, it's there are people that enjoy that and will support you, and the people who don't really matter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I could have said it better myself. That's exactly how I'd sum up. So yeah, I'll leave it at that. That was great. Really enjoyed having him on. It was great. His story was awesome too. I'm kind of jealous of the half an hour with a mountain lion, a cougar, or puma, whatever you want to call it. I'm jealous of that. So yeah, really good. Awesome. Really enjoyed having him on, and hopefully we'll have him on again in the future. And who knows, maybe we'll be able to have some content with him in other forums as well. So that was really great.
Really cool.
So yeah. So yeah, we'll wrap it up. To be honest, I'm not sure when this episode will air exactly yet, because it might be around the holidays. It might not. We'll see. But whenever it's airing, I hope everybody enjoyed it. And whenever our next episode is, I hope you all tune in and listen, like, click, share, subscribe, all those cliche things we say at the end of these episodes. And yeah, I guess we'll see you next time, whether it's in a week or 2 weeks. We'll see you next time. And thanks a lot for listening.
Bye, everyone.
Ciao.